The junkyard on the edge of town was quiet at night, and Ibrahim liked it that way. He walked the narrow lanes between stacked metal frames and old cargo pods with a small lamp clipped to his jacket. He was a recycler and a helper for his neighbors. He fixed loose door hinges, slow fans, radios that needed patience, and children's toy cars with missing wheels. When he walked here, he listened for little sounds that hinted at parts he could save. A soft rattle could be a bolt. A dull ring could be a good plate. He knew the yard like a map made of shadows and dust. He moved with careful steps, lifting and setting down, always gentle because everything in this place already felt a little tired. On this night, the air had a light chill. A thin moon hung above the metal roofs, and a cat with one white ear followed him for a while, then changed its mind and curled on a warm pipe. Ibrahim kept his bag close and his breath slow. He did not like to rush. Rushing made hands clumsy. Calm hands found treasure that others missed. He picked a neat coil of wire, then a bracket still strong on one side. He smiled at the small winds and told the air in his soft voice, "Someone's fan will be happy again." He turned a corner and paused. There in the aisle near the back fence stood an old cargo pod he had not checked in weeks. Its paint was dull green, the hinges eaten by rust, the door split at the bottom by a long, uneven crack. He would have walked past, but he heard it. Not the usual sound of wind or loose metal. It was a low rattle, then a small, quick breath. Not a cat, not a rat, something else. His lamp threw a circle on the pod. He knelt, and the dust felt dry under his knee. He did not push the door. He set the lamp on the ground and waited. The rattle came again. It sounded like a can rolling and a tiny cough that someone tried to hide. He spoke in the simple way he used with shy children and with guests who were learning the language. "Hello, my name is Ibrahim. I fix things. I will not come close. I am only listening." There was silence, the kind that makes the throat feel warm and tight, then a very soft scrape, like small fingers on metal. Ibrahim reached for his bag and took out a clean blanket he kept for late walks. He also took a bottle of water and a wrapped granola bar from his pocket. He placed them 3 steps from the crack in the door, then moved back, slow, palms open. He did not look straight into the dark. He looked at the ground and the stars, and he breathed in a calm rhythm, so his body said, "No hurry, no fear." A pair of eyes appeared where the door split. They were large and reflective, like smooth glass marbles, but there was a gentle shimmer to them, a silver ring that looked like moonlight on a bowl. The face around them was thin, with soft skin that had tiny dots like freckles, except they were a faint metallic blue. A small hand pushed out, felt the air, stopped, and pulled back. The hand came out again, slower this time, and tapped the water bottle. The fingers trembled. Ibrahim noticed the wrist. A band sat there, cracked on one side with a small square where a light should live. The band was silent. He kept his voice even. "This water is for you. You can take it. If you want food, I have a bar. It is sweet and easy." The hand took the bottle and slipped inside. He heard the twist of the cap, then small sips and a quiet, careful swallow after each one, as if the throat needed to remember how to do it. Ibrahim stayed still and counted the breaths he could hear. 1, 2, 3, slow, then faster, then slow again. The bottle came back out and rolled to the edge of the lamp's light. He could see it was half empty. The small face showed again. A sound came like a whisper rubbed by static. The child touched the crack on the wristband, then pressed a finger to her stomach, then pointed up to the sky with a very small motion, as if the sky could break if she pointed too hard. Ibrahim understood the simple words she could not say. Hungry, lost, from above. He nodded gently to show he understood. He picked up the wrapped bar and placed it near the water. He did not push it closer. He backed away again. After a pause, the hand came out, took the bar, fumbled with the wrapper, then stopped. The fingers were shaking too much. Ibrahim looked to his bag and then back to the door. He spoke like a friend offering help in a kitchen. "May I open it for you? I will place it down and step back." He counted to 3 in his head before moving, so there were no sudden moments. He unwrapped the bar, broke it into small pieces, and set them neatly on the blanket. He stepped back again. The hand reached for the pieces one by one, as if counting them into safety. He heard the small bite sounds, the slow chew, the pause to swallow. He did not watch her eat. He tilted his head up and looked at the moon, naming shapes in the clouds in a quiet voice as if telling a story to the air itself. Some say that cloud looks like a boat. I think it looks like a spoon. A big spoon for a big sky. He said it to let her know that the world was calm. The eating sound slowed. A tiny sigh of relief slipped out from inside the pod, and it felt like the night took a deep breath too. A quick draft moved through the aisle and the door of the pod rattled. The little hand flinched back. Ibrahim reached for the blanket and rolled a thick edge of it against the base of the door to block the wind. He moved like a person carrying a sleeping cat, steady, careful, precise. He took off his jacket, a clean one he wore over his work shirt, and slid it on top of the blanket roll to add weight. The jacket was warm from his body, and a bit of that warmth crept under the door. The eyes appeared again. They watched him with new thought in them. Not only hunger, not only fear. He pointed at his chest.
Ibrahim. He said his name the way teachers say the first lesson of the day.
Then he nodded toward the door in a gentle question. The child tapped her chest and shaped a breath around a soft sound. Rel. It was almost not a word, more like a leaf-brushing stone, but it was a name, and names make bridges. He repeated it softly to show he had heard it right. Rel. He smiled, and the smile reached his eyes because he did not push it. He let it rise at its own pace. He noticed the band on her wrist again with the small dead square. He had seen bands like that in old starport markets when traders swapped tools and laughed over tea. They were simple translator tags, not complex, not rare, but important like door keys. He did not try to touch it. He made a tiny fixing motion with his fingers to ask if he could look later. Then he placed his small toolkit on the ground and stepped back once more. The gesture said, "You choose." Rel watched the kit and then looked at his face. She did not push the kit away, and that was enough for a promise not yet spoken. The night grew a little colder. Ibrahim checked the time. He did not want to keep her awake, but he did not want to leave quickly either. He thought of the small stove in his bag, the kind campers used to warm tea. He lifted it slowly so she could see it. "I can make warm soup, soft soup. I will turn it toward you. I will look away." He waited for a sign. Rel did not move, but her eyes softened like rain on dry sand. He took that as a yes. He set the stove down a few steps from the door, lit it with a patient hand, and placed a little pot with water and a nest of noodles that melt quickly. The scent climbed into the cold air, plain and good. He turned the stove so the heat faced the crack under the door, and he shifted the lamp so the light would not shine in her eyes. He sat cross-legged with his back to the pod facing the aisle, becoming a shield without standing in the way. When the soup was ready, he lifted it off the flame, stirred, and blew gently until the steam slowed. He poured it into a cup and set it on the blanket, then moved away. The cup slid a little as a hand drew it in. The clink of spoon to cup was one of the nicest sounds he had heard all week. They stayed like that for a while, two quiet people in a quiet place, sharing the same small pool of light. Ibrahim told a story in short lines, easy to follow even without the band. He talked about the white-eared cat who thought it owned the yard, the neighbor boy who brought him a radio that only hummed, and the old fan that finally turned after he cleaned it with a soft brush. He used simple words and let them settle, like warm air near a floor. Rel's spoon slowed, then stopped. He heard the soft thunk of an empty cup and a sound that was very close to a contented sigh. He did not ask big questions. He did not say, "Where are your people?" or "How did you fall from the sky?" The night would hold those questions until she felt strong. He looked at the band again and formed a plan in his mind. He had spare parts in his workshop, tiny chips and common wires. He had a fine tip iron and good eyes for small breaks. It was not a loud plan. It was a plan made of warm milk, clean tools, and a steady table. He spoke softly and set his words in tomorrow. "I will come at sunrise. I will bring warm bread, fruit, and milk. I will bring a small heater. I will bring a cart with wheels. If you agree, we can move this pod to my workshop. It is close and quiet, no crowds, the door locks. The cats are friendly." He placed his palm on the ground so the gesture showed truth. Rel did not answer with words, but her hand reached out to touch the edge of the blanket and tapped twice as if counting. Then she tapped her wristband, the broken square, and gave a small nod. It was not a big nod. It was a seed nod. A breeze moved again, lighter now. The stars looked like grains of sugar. Ibrahim stood slowly, the same way he had knelt. He packed the stove, folded the blanket but left a thick roll against the door and placed his. Morning came in soft colors and Ibrahim was ready before the sky turned gold. He warmed milk on his small stove, filled a basket with fresh bread and slices of sweet fruit, and checked the portable heater he had cleaned the night before. He added a folded towel, a small tin of jelly, and a little spoon with a flower on the handle. The cart waited by his door with 4 quiet wheels. He patted each wheel as if it were a calm horse, and then he set off toward the junkyard with steady steps. A thin mist lay over the lanes when he reached the gate. He unlocked it, rolled the cart in, and listened to the hush of early light on metal. The white-eared cat walked beside him with the important air of a helper. When they turned the last corner, he saw the old cargo pod exactly where he had left it, his jacket neatly posed as a guard over the blanket roll. The small lamp still glowed, a warm dot in the cool air. He stopped a few steps back and spoke in his gentle morning voice. "Good morning, Relay, it is Ibrahim. I brought breakfast." He placed the basket and the heater near the door and stepped away so she could choose. The door shifted just a little and the same pair of bright eyes looked out. They held more light in them now, not only from the lamp. The hand came forward and touched the heater first. Ibrahim showed his fingers on the control. "Low," he said. "Soft warm. Not hot." He turned it on and the heater gave a quiet hum. Rel mirrored the hum, a tiny sound in her throat as if to test it. Then she looked at the basket. He opened the basket slowly and showed each thing like a small gift. "Bread," he said, tearing it into gentle pieces. "Fruit." He named the fruit in simple words. "Apple, peach." He poured warm milk into a cup and held it where the steam would drift inside without being too bold. Rel reached for the cup and cradled it with both hands. The first sip made her shoulders relax. The second sip made her eyes close for a heartbeat. He placed a plate on the blanket and stepped back again. She ate with better rhythm now, not clumsy, not in a hurry, pausing after each bite to feel safe. The white-eared cat sat like a statue near the heater and pretended not to look at the bread. Ibrahim broke a crumb and flicked it gently on the floor. The cat decided to notice the crumb by accident, which made Rel smile. It was a small smile that arrived like a shy bird, but it stayed. "Today," Ibrahim said softly, "if you want, we move the pod to my workshop. The ground there is clean and the door locks. I will fix your band if I can, and later we can call for help." He did not say more. The plan was a calm path, not a push. Rella looked at the wheels he had brought, simple frames with straps, and gave a small nod. She reached out and tapped the pod once, then tapped her wristband. The message was easy: yes, try fix. He slipped the wheels under the pod with slow hands and tested the balance. It was heavier than it looked, but not too heavy for the cart. He found a good angle, and with careful effort he pulled. The pod rolled, a low groan at first, then a steady glide. He checked often to make sure Rella was ready for each little bump. She braced herself and held the cup of milk like a captain holding a compass. When the pod crossed the gate into the street, the world became larger. The morning had fully arrived, with soft voices far away and birds playing games with the light. His workshop stood only a few turns away, a tidy building with a wide door and a small window full of potted herbs. He loved how the herbs made the air smell like patience. He had arranged his tools along one wall like a row of well-behaved children. He had a clear table, a tall lamp, and a corner with a rug that had belonged to his mother. He rolled the pod inside and set it near the rug. He placed the heater to one side and the basket to the other, and he opened the window a little to let in a ribbon of fresh air. The white-eared cat took up a guard post below the window and made a face as if it alone kept the entire town safe. "I will look at your band now," he said softly. "May I?" He held out his hands, palms up, so she could see he would touch only what she allowed. Rel stayed inside the pod opening and extended her wrist. Her hand trembled, but not as much as last night. Ibrahim supported the band with the folded towel so it would not scrape her skin. He fetched his magnifier and peered into the little square. The crack ran across a simple power rail and a thin track with tiny dots like seeds. He murmured, which was how his mind said, "I see the path." He opened his parts box and laid out wires the width of a hair, a small coil, and a very small chip that used to live in an old radio. He warmed the tip of his soldering iron and cleaned it on a wet sponge with short, careful strokes. The workshop went quiet except for the heater hum and the cat's slow purr. He made 2 tiny bridges on the board, set the coil where the original had burned out, and replaced a tired battery with a fresh one. He kept his breathing steady so his hands would follow. When he clicked the cover closed and pressed the small button, the square winked awake. A pale light glowed, then steadied. Rel's eyes widened, and she pulled the band close to her face like a flower that had opened. She touched a side pad and spoke a soft sound. The band answered with a kind chime and a string of gentle words in its own tone. Then a heartbeat later it tried the language of the room. "Hello," it said, a little flat but very clear. "I can learn." Ibrahim smiled, and the smile reached his shoulders. "Welcome back," he said to the band. And to Rel he added, "May we try?" Slow words. He pointed at himself. "Ibrahim." The band listened, hummed, and then repeated his name with a friendly pitch. Rel tapped her chest. "Rel," the band echoed, a shade brighter than before. She touched the pod, and the band tried a word for it. "Nest," it said. She looked at Ibrahim quickly, worried it might be wrong, but he bobbed his head. "Nest is a good word," he agreed. "Safe like a nest." They practiced simple lines together. "Warm. Bread. Thank you. You are welcome." Each success added a small light to the morning. Rel's shoulders softened like clay in gentle hands. She was still thin, and tiredness lived around her eyes, but her gaze had a brave spark that was there even when she was quiet. After a rest, Ibrahim guided her to the corner with the rug. He brought a small basin of warm water and a clean cloth. He stayed nearby but looked aside so she could wash her face and hands in peace. He set a mirror where she could reach it if she wanted but did not push it on her. He placed a comb on the towel. She touched the comb with curious care and worked it through her soft hair, which had a faint silver sheen like frost on grass. He moved to the radio rig on his side table. It was old, but it had a good heart. He tuned it to a neutral aid frequency he had written down on a card years ago. When a clear channel opened, he spoke. "Good morning. My name is Ibrahim. I found a lost child last night. She is safe. She has a translator now. We would like advice." He kept his words plain and steady, the way bridges are plain and steady. The radio crackled and then answered with quiet warmth. "Good morning, Ibrahim. This is Aid Relay 7. Thank you for the call. Can you give the child's name?" He asked Rella with a tilt of his head. She lifted her wrist. "Rella," the band said. "Age. Little." The radio voice smiled through the static. "We will notify a care ship. Please share your location and simple markers." He did so, telling them about the old water tower, the line of trees by the park, and his street's gentle curve. "Pickup window is in the later afternoon," the aid voice said. "Please keep her warm and calm. You may hear a low tone when we arrive. Thank you again for your kindness." He turned from the radio and found Rel watching him, eyes bright with many small thoughts. He did not rush to fill the silence. He brought the basket again and tried a new thing. Jelly on warm bread cut into small squares. She laughed, a tiny silver laugh, when the jelly tried to escape and left a spot on his thumb. She reached out without thinking and wiped it with the corner of the towel, then paused as if surprised by her own boldness. It was a gentle moment, full of the kind of trust that grows in quiet ways. The hours until afternoon were simple and good. He showed her how to sort wires by color and thickness into little cups. She showed him her comfort light, the palm device that measured warmth and peace. When she pressed it, a soft glow filled her hand. She held it near the heater, then near the window, and the glow shifted to show different levels. She touched his sleeve with the light, and it grew brighter. She smiled at that. "You are warm," the band translated. He bowed playfully. "I try." They drew tiny pictures on scrap paper. Her world had trees with long floating leaves that drifted down like feathers. His had a street vendor who sold sweet pancakes with powdered sugar that always blew onto his nose. The white-eared cat joined their drawing by placing a paw on the page as if to sign it. Rel wrote the cat's name in a neat symbol that looked like two small waves. "Friend," the band guessed. Ibrahim laughed softly. "Friend is perfect." Before the pickup time, Ibrahim packed a small care bag. He added fruit, bread, a sealed cup for milk, a soft scarf, and a tiny toolkit he made from spare pieces. A screwdriver with a friendly handle, a coil of simple wire, and a folded card with pictures showing how to tie a neat loop. He also tucked in a photo he printed from his old camera. The workshop doorway with the white-eared cat in front pretending not to pose. On the back he wrote in clear letters, "You are welcome here, Ibrahim." As the afternoon light became calm and long, a low, gentle tone hummed,